What is going on, guys? TKD 1, 2, 3 video, and today I want to talk about an album that we reviewed this week. Obviously, every week on Monday I tweet out the album of the week and we go through, listen to it all as a group, and we talk about it on Twitter, we tweet about it, all that good stuff, and then at the end of the week we post the review on the weekend of the album that we reviewed this week. And so this week we have an album that I personally even still to be, and like really was extremely hyped for. It is by a duo that I absolutely adore. They're from OVO, so obviously a little bit biased there, but beside the point, I definitely do enjoy these two's craft and the way they make their music, and I think it's among the best in R&B by far. And without further ado, we are going to be reviewing Majid Jordan's The Space Between. Now, going into the logistics of this album, it is 13 songs and 50 minutes long, so a little bit on the short end. We'll get into how I feel about that, going into later and into this review, but just first off, that's just kind of how it is right there. So and really, when you listen to this album from like front to back, it definitely does feel longer than it actually is. It feels a lot more full of content, I would say, but it definitely is. You begin to notice that really shorten this after a while, and it really is to its detriment. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. And speaking of features, we have two features. They are Division and Party Next Door, but the two songs that they're on were released prematurely from the album release. So right there, it's a little bit more of a spoiler thing. If you listen to these songs before the album came out, you're aware of these songs, what I'm saying? And I was aware of these songs, so that's kind of, it goes against my usual thing where I try to avoid all these songs, even like if they're singles or just from other stuff. I tend to try to avoid them if it's pretty obvious that they will be part of the album in the future. But here on this front, I just didn't do it. Who knows why? But yeah, so you will be familiar with the features here as well. Then what I think is one of the most unique aspects of this whole album is the intro and outro. Now, of course, what can be so revolutionary about the intro and outro of this album, right? And I feel that these intros and outros, they are very, very much simplistic. But in their simplistic, they're very, very much in depth in what they mean to the entire thing, right? What I'm saying? Like, there's a coin, obviously there's a phrase, that goes less is more. And I feel like with the intro and outro, they, deliberately did less to do more with the overall sound and the overall point of the intro and outro, right? Just the intro was this like weird, almost like a palate cleanser, how they do like at restaurants or whatever, where they give you like a little bit of something here and that's supposed to kind of make your palate ready for the other stuff that you'll be tasting throughout the night. That's kind of what they got here, where it was a little bit of the intro is very, very weird, very distorted in a lot of ways, and super weird, because you think it's gonna go this way, then we go to track 2 and it's completely a different direction. And I absolutely love that aspect of it. And what's also unique about it is that like the intro feels and just sounds so much more different to the next song after it, and they somehow made it flow beautifully, and I absolutely love that. And like a lot of these songs flow together perfectly. I absolutely adore that. And the outro is just nice, and I'll talk about it now. It's kind of weird to talk about, but I just thought it'd be fresh in my mind. And the outro, I feel, is something that it like hints a little bit at some songs that you just heard throughout the album, and it is one of the most like satisfying outros. It's not satisfying in the same way as Drake's D&D track from More Life, but it's just satisfying in just this is Majid Jordan. What I'm saying? Like this is a Majid Jordan album, and this outro is a Majid Jordan outro, right? And it goes through and through, and exactly what it does here in the intro and outro. But let's go into the meat of it. Let's go into the middle of the album. Now, with track 2, it starts a little bit upbeat. It's a great premise, about just giving your love away, and of course that's gonna tie in a lot to the outro as well. It gets repeated, that same line, and overall I feel like it's a great track. And there was critique going around that a lot of these songs sound the same, and to a degree they do, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. Then we have OG Heartthrob going next here, and this really highlights the notion that I, really did kind of just pick up immediately, with this album, is that, Majid Jordan and like the way they are editing their singing and like how they sound on the track is super different on this album, right? Like it feels like they kind of stripped away the editing that they did on, their voices, in previous songs, like previous albums, and they're just going off of a more raw, like just sounding, sound, if that makes sense, right? Like it feels like, you know, they are more comfortable with their sounds, you know what I'm saying, as opposed to just having it, you know, just sound really cool in the past and everything. Right here, like, they are more comfortable with the way they sing. I definitely do enjoy that notion, especially here on this track as well. Then we have Body Talk. A lot of people are talking about Body Talk. That's more of like, a lot of people are talking about Body Talk here, and like, you know, there is a lot of buzz about it. I feel like that is definitely, you know, the very much highlight of this whole thing. Definitely Body Talk definitely does relate to a lot of people. A lot of people enjoy that song as a whole. And then right after that, we have Not Ashamed, which really Not Ashamed is, I think, still my favorite song on this album. You know, it just tends to change a lot throughout the week, and it did change a lot. But I feel like Not Ashamed was consistently one of my favorite songs of this whole thing. I just loved how that song was made and everything, with just that beginning intro voice just being all muffled and distorted. And I just loved the just edginess that it has with Not Ashamed. I definitely did enjoy that, and it definitely does scream Majid Jordan, you know what I'm saying. Then we have One I Want, of course, with Party Next Door. That's obviously a good track. We had a really sad song, which is You. You definitely did attract, you know, a lot of people that felt that type of way, and you know, definitely a lot of people can relate to that song. Definitely You is one of the most relatable tracks on this whole thing. Then we have, of course, Phases, which was a release as well before this album, and that one obviously is a banger. Come on, like, it's Phases. It's a great track. I mean, oh my god, like when that beat kicks in about halfway in the song, oh my dude, like, come on, like, that's just perfect. It's perfect guys, perfect. And then we have Asleep, where, you know, Asleep is a very weird song to me. Like, I like it, obviously, you know, I enjoy, you know, Asleep, but just there's some notes there that are questionable, honestly. There's some, you know, just kind of repetitive decisions and repetitive notes that kind of sound enemy, but overall, you know, it's a great track. You know, let's just not be front with that. It's a great track. And then we have probably, you know, my second, and really this one battles for first as well, of my favorite tracks on this whole thing, and it's What You Do to Me. It again has that edginess and that, you know, that dramatic type of sound to it that Not Ashamed had, and I definitely do gravitate towards that version of Majid Jordan. Like, when they go a little bit edgy, a little bit more attitude, a little more oomph to their songs, like with Not Ashamed and What You Do to Me, I absolutely love it. And the way What You Do to Me, the instrumental, I think is one of the most standout instrumentals, and I'm gonna try to have it for his video. Hopefully I will have it for his video. But you know, What You Do to Me has a very dynamic and changing, you know, living and breathing instrumental, and that's what I definitely do. You know, like, I definitely do enjoy that in songs. I definitely do enjoy it on this track as well, and I definitely, you know, am, you know, just gravitated towards that wave instrumental where it's not just, you know, a nice instrumental, but it like speaks to me as well. We have My Imagination with Division, which of course is a great track. Division does amazing in that track, and then we have the theoretical last track of this outro, I mean, of the album, not talking about the outro, that is The Space Between. And you know, this is a very upbeat song, and when you listen to the lyrics, it really does kind of put the whole album in a perspective here, you know what I'm saying, where, you know, it's the space between, and he kind of gives a little, you know, comparison to it being like at a dance hall, or like at a dance party where everyone's like on the wall, they're waiting for alcohol, like no one's dancing on the dance floor or whatever. And you know, he and like in the song, he, you know, uses the space between is the dance floor, and it's a space where obviously you can look at it in a more metaphorical standpoint of where it's the space where not a lot of people go to, or people are maybe uncomfortable to go to, or people, you know, feel that, you know, they're just not down with it, right? And he's just like, yo, like, let's you know, kind of scrape off all of these misconceptions, all of these, you know, worries and doubts, whatever, and let's just be in the space between, and you know, on the dance floor. And I definitely did enjoy that whole breakdown of it. I thought it was beautiful, but it was crafted, and overall this album is great, right? And literally, you know, I was talking to a lot of people, especially like with my friend Yuzan. You all know Yuzan. Shout out to Yuzan. But you know, in us talking about it, we really came to a conclusion that this album's worst thing working against it is its length. Like, there are so many good elements on this album that I wish we got more of. Wish we got maybe like a few more tracks, a little more, you know what I'm saying? And it's weird because, you know, when you first listen to it a few times, it does sound, you know, like it's longer than it is, but you know, when you get to a couple playtimes in, you realize that, you know, this isn't the longest album in the world. And obviously, you know, it's kind of me being kind of ass here, saying like, oh yeah, I wish they made more music, you know what I'm saying? But you know, there is a little bit of like this album, you know, is not different from Majid Jordan, right? Like but it has a unique angle to it, I feel, you know what I'm saying? Where, you know, there are different things happening in this album, and it's not so different where it's a weird thing like a Party Next Door with 7 Days. It's not that type of different. It's just a different angle from the same loving perspective that we got from Majid Jordan overall. So you know what, man, if you are a fan of OVO, if you're a fan of Majid Jordan, I definitely do recommend this album. This album is great. The space between is definitely worth the 50 minutes of your time, and really is 50 minutes. Like, come on, it's really short. At least give it a shot if you haven't tried out Majid Jordan yet. And ladies and gentlemen, that was my review of the space between. If you want to, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share down below. I appreciate me. Thanks for watching, and as always, I got you.